Venerable. I had a question about you've mentioned that contemplation, and I've been doing the breathing meditation, but I've noticed that my mind wants to think about some of the uh, emotions I'm feeling, and there's a lot of sort of discursive thinking going on, and I was wondering how should one contemplate effectively, I guess.
Right. Yeah, a good question that many people ask. The basic teaching is we practice mindfulness, for instance, mindfulness of breathing, to bring up mindfulness, because our normal state of mind is only partially mindful. We're a bit scattered. We can think of things, but then we get distracted. And often our thinking and contemplation is quite superficial because of that. So a big part of our meditation practice is learning to be mindful of an object, to make our mindfulness really strong, continuous, and our awareness and clear comprehension very clear, so that when the mind is more calm, we can contemplate more effectively, like you said. Because you'll notice when you're practicing mindfulness of breathing, if you try to contemplate a thought or a feeling, emotion that comes up, if you've just begun or your mindfulness is not very strong yet, you'll just get lost in that. We go to daydreams and thinking, and we don't realize what we're doing. And after a while, we realize, oh, I just got lost in that train of thought for the last 30 minutes or something. It's a very common experience. So we really want to focus on developing strong, continuous mindfulness. That's our basic practice. Out of that state of calm that starts to emerge, sometimes things come up themselves that kind of require you to look at them. Certain emotions, trains of thought, problems may emerge out of the calm, and already they kind of require you to look into them and maybe try and observe the three characteristics or understand. Quite often in the beginning, we're just understanding what is a wholesome state of mind, what is unwholesome. And wholesome states of mind tend to bring a sense of calm, peace with them. They tend to be more productive and can lead on and be a cause for other wholesome states of mind. So you may continue a theme, say, contemplating the practice of metta, spreading goodwill, for example, or contemplating the theme of impermanence, for example. When your mind has mindfulness, it's calm, it's steady, it's in a wholesome state, then contemplation can continue. But if the mind is still jumping all over the place or falling into negative reactions or getting lost or falling asleep, what we call the five hindrances, then that always has to be your priority, is come back and try to abandon whichever of the five hindrances is arising. But as I've said a few times, this is the standard explanation. You make your mind calm, bring up the mindfulness. When it's calm and steady, then you're able to look more clearly at your own experience of body and mind. But as we're doing that, there'll be times when you just have to contemplate the best you can, because mindfulness doesn't seem to be improving and there may be some particular issue bothering you. And sometimes you make a decision in your meditation, sometimes, to just contemplate what's going on. Why am I thinking this? What's going on? How do I get through this? How can I understand this? And through thinking, sometimes with reasoned reflection or careful thinking and consideration of an issue, you may be able to let go of a hindrance. So there's no absolute one way of doing it. But if you look at the kind of the big picture or the standard way of teaching, our aim is to develop continuous mindfulness, the hindrances drop away, then you can really look back at your own five khandhas from a place of objectivity, stillness, steadiness of mind. Then you'll see more these three universal characteristics of existence without the mind just descending into endless restless thinking or sleepiness.
Thank you.
Hello. กราบนมัสการพระอาจารย์เจ้าค่ะหลวงพ่อ I would like to ask you something that is really causing a lot of disturbance in my meditation is because I want to know how we can completely forgive our mother who has a natural tendency to lie and deceive us all the time, deceive her kids. And many times when she does all these wrongdoings, it causes us, the kids, in trouble. And then every time it makes us feel that whenever she does this, it makes us feel very insecure and not safe. So when I meditate, all all her doings since when we're young till now, and I'm 52 right now, all these doings, all her doings keep coming into my mind, and it's disturbing so badly. And I try to forgive her, but then it just doesn't cut off this. I don't know how I'm act I her lies and everything. I never told her that it really hurts us, but um I don't know whether I should tell her. I don't want to hurt her. If I tell her, I'm gonna hurt her. But if I don't tell her, it's disturbing me so badly like that. I don't know. It's really disturbing because, like, for example, I give you a very, really direct, it's lately this, she hired a maid. She hired a maid around like 2 years. And then on this year, February, the maid got a test and she got HIV. And when she got HIV, my mother doesn't want to tell any of her kids. So on August, I met with the maid and she was wounded, and then so I fixed her wound and I touched her blood, and I didn't know that she got HIV. I didn't know that. And after like 2-3 weeks later, I got sick. Then I got sick for 3 months, and I didn't know what's the problem. And then after that, the maid felt really bad that I was sick. So then she told me that, oh, Kunshin, I got HIV. And I was thinking, but I told your mother, meaning she told my mother, but my mother didn't tell me that she got HIV ever since February. So I was so shocked. I was thinking, so this like I'm getting all these skin problem. Is it because I went to do her wound? And then I went to go, and I quickly went to check. I went for a checkup, and I found out that okay, I'm not HIV positive. But then I told my mother. Then I called my mother and said, "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us that you hire a maid that is HIV?" And then she said, "It's not my business to tell you anything." And then I said, "Then you should tell my sisters too, because they come to your house and they encounter something like me, then it's going to be a danger to it's harmful for my sisters too." And then my mother got angry, and then after that, from then on, I felt like, oh God, I cannot I cannot trust my mother. Ever since when I'm young, she's always
Hello.
yes,
Maybe
yes,
because
Paul.
maybe because we're short of time, I'll give you an answer because I think
Okay,
we
yes,
understand.
okay.
You might mute yourself because you have a lot of static.
Sorry.
So parents and children, this is a perennial, a constant point of Dhamma coming up. Everyone has issues with their parents and parents have issues with their children. We're learning to live together. But if we go back to the Buddha said our number one duty towards our parents is to try and establish them in faith, in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and in the practice. If we can establish them in the 5 precepts, great. If we can get them to listen to Dhamma and start meditating, even better. So I understand maybe your mum's practice, her values, her behavior is not quite the same as yours. So that's one thing you have to work with, but you know what she's like. You've lived with her for many years. And I imagine you still love your mum and you have great compassion and gratitude to your mum for bringing you up. So you're just going to have to work with the way she is. And if you know her habits, how she is, sometimes she's not that honest or doesn't say something that she should, just be aware of that weakness in her character and then act accordingly. So sometimes you have to be aware, maybe mum hasn't told me something, so you have to be a little bit careful around that. But try and get her to listen to Dhamma, go and see teachers even better, so that she starts to develop more of her own awareness of her own actions and speech, and she can start to grow in the Dhamma herself. And then the same for you. Say as a child, you have to ask yourself, my anger towards mum, my frustration with my mum, is that helping the situation? If you're getting angry or upset or concerned because of your mum's behavior after something like this, the issue with the maid, your anger, your worry, your concern is not really helping you or her or anyone. It's just more suffering in this situation. So our starting point for our own practice, dealing with our parents or other people, we always come back to ourselves to establish mindfulness so we can calm down a bit, accept what's happened, accept the way things are. And then as we become more peaceful, maybe we can see some kind of solution or at least see what we can do. And because your mother's older than you, she may not change very much now in her life. She's in the later stage of her life. But you can change. You can see these qualities and these weaknesses. So you have to also look, do I have these in myself? Do I tell lies? Do I hide the truth sometimes? If you can see the same weaknesses in yourself, that's where you can practice changing yourself, establish yourself in the 5 precepts. And this is only going to help your mum and other people around you as well. So focus mostly on your practice and make looking after your mother another part of that practice. And when you look after someone, you don't blame them. You just accept the way they are and you do what you can for them. And look for the joy in that. Maybe you just keep remembering all the good things your mum has done in your life. You know, maybe she has a few character faults. We all do. But she's done a lot of good. She brought you into the world. She fed you, looked after you, gave you love, support, all kinds of things when you were helpless as a child. So now is the time to give something back to her. And don't worry about her behavior. You know, you do the best you can to know what she's like, but forgive her. Don't hold on to any grudge. Don't hold on to any anger towards her. Forgive her every day. Just forgive her. See what you can do to help her. And if you can, get her to listen to Dhamma and practice Dhamma. Go to a temple, meet a teacher, a monk, listen to some teachings or on YouTube or recordings. If you're in Australia, you could bring her here and we talk. If you're online, maybe you get your mum to listen online and we can talk, or some other teacher nearer to your mother's home. There's plenty we can do to help our parents in the Dhamma. So don't get stuck on her faults. Remember all the good she's done and just keep supporting her and helping her.
Thank you, Luang Por. Thank you, Shin. Anybody else with any questions? Please raise your hand. Yes, we have someone else, Luang Por, D09. Could you please unmute yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
กราบนมัสการหลวงพ่อเจ้าค่ะ หลวงพ่อ I just wondering about the teaching about when I try to look at my hair, my nail, and then I still feel like that is still my body. So how to? I try many times, but and then I just touch myself. I still feel everything. So could you please explain again, please?
Yeah, I think that's a good question and it's the right question. because we have to keep asking, why do I attach to this body as me, myself? Why do I still do that? So next time you have a haircut, pick the hair off the floor. You go to the salon or some friend cuts your hair, pick up your hair, ask, is that still me? It's not. What do you do with the hair you've cut off? You throw it away. You don't keep it. If one of those hairs goes in your food, you don't like it. It ruins your food, we say. As soon as your hair or your nail clippings or any other part of the body that comes out, as soon as it comes out, we don't want it. It's dirty, smelly, you want to get rid of it. Keep asking yourself, why is that? If this body is me, why do I feel like that? You start like this, asking questions, thinking about it, watching. But the important thing is also you practice mindfulness, sati sampajanya. You practice your meditation every day and make your mindfulness really strong, really clear. And sometimes when your mind goes in deep and it lets go of the body, you understand more clearly, oh, mind is one thing, body is another. Rupa Dhamma, Nama Dhamma, Rupa Tham, Nama Tham. When your mind is calm, one-pointed, you might see that. Everything goes inwards. The mind is very bright. You don't feel the heaviness of your body, hot and cold sounds. You drop all that. So your mind is, your mindfulness and your knowing is just with the mind. Then you can look at the body much differently and say, this body, it is not really a person. It's not me. It's something that will one day go back to the earth. We have cremation or burial and it will be gone. So keep practicing the meditation, keep looking and learning, and little by little you'll understand. เข้าใจไหม? ให้พิจารณาตั้งสติพิจารณาทุกวันทุกวัน เข้าใจไหม?
เข้าใจค่ะ สาธุค่ะ
ดี
Thank you, Luang Por. Thank you, Sister, for your question. Anybody else wishes to ask any questions of Luang Por? Please raise your hand.
Maybe I'll ask a question.
Go ahead, Luang Por.
I'll ask a question. How was the retreat for all of you who've joined in the retreat? Did you find it helpful? Did something good happen in your retreat?
There we go. I think we have Nisanka and Hemanta, Luang Por, who have just raised their hands. If we could unmute them.
Luang Por, thank you for all you spent with us, for the whole group. It's very encouraging for us to see you sit for more sessions, so I appreciate that. So thank you very much. The last Dhamma talk, I think you mentioned about that sense impingement is tiring, if I understood you right. And I thought about it, and basically the way I contemplate that would be that it's essentially seeing and hearing and all those senses that impinge on us, and essentially the attachment we have, and like the Bahiya Sutta, to disconnect from seeing as seeing. Is that what you implied, or is there anything else you can offer in practical terms?
Yes, that is a good goal. That sutta is correct. The Buddha did say this. We're getting to the point where our mindfulness is so strong and continuous. We're in a very detached awareness. So then seeing is just seeing, hearing is just hearing. And the sense of self, the attachment that normally arises, is dropping away, and it's just seeing, just hearing, just tasting, just thinking without attachment. That is a goal of the practice. And the more mindfulness we have, the more we can see this sense of self forming. Of course, it's very fast and automatic. So this is an ongoing practice we keep working at. But you'll notice at times when your mindfulness is very clear, very strong, then you can just hear a sound, loud sound, soft sound, doesn't matter. And you're mindful enough just to hear and then drop it. And it's just hearing. And so on. A thought comes up, you know it, and then you drop it. So it's just thinking, just seeing, just thinking. But also you get other insights coming as well. The more mindfulness you have and the more able you are to be mindful of your sense contact and sense impressions. As I was saying earlier, I didn't go into it much, but sense impressions, one after the other. Once your mind is calm and still, there's some samadhi there, then you're seeing the impingement as it is, and it's quite tiring because every sense contact draws the mind, and if we're not mindful, it draws it with a sense of self, attachment, craving forms. So you like what you see or you don't like what you see. It's quite tiring. Going on like that all day long is one reason why at the end of the day we feel tired. We've been bombarded through our senses, and our sense of self has constantly been stimulated into liking and disliking, craving, wanting, not wanting. That's why when you have maximum sense impact, sense impingement, it might be, for example, you go shopping in a big shopping mall for a few hours, you feel drained, don't you? You feel mentally drained because your mind has been going all over the place. A lot of sense impingement. When you take that away, so you come on a retreat and you're just sitting in a quiet room, not much happening, you're just trying to watch the breath, there's very little sense contact, little sense impingement, so we often fall asleep. So the mind uses sense impingement, sense impressions like a crutch, like a walking stick. We lean on them. We're always looking for the next thing to see, to taste, to touch, to think about. Because the mind isn't used to being stable on its own. When you develop more samadhi and more continuous mindfulness, you're becoming aware that it can be more stable on its own without any of this sense of external contact. It is not easy to develop samadhi, but even a little bit of samadhi will start giving you that insight. And you start to experience what we call the independent mind or the free mind, where it's not just craving another sight, another thought, another experience. This is a very powerful and a very meaningful insight when you have more awareness of the still mind that is independent and peaceful on its own. Then you can look back at sense impressions. However good they are, you can see they're impermanent, they don't last, they draw your energy, they can distract you, confuse you, bring you happiness and suffering. So you start to become more aware of the limitations of the world, what we call the sensual world, based on sight, sound, taste, smell, touch. So this may be a gradual opening up to the truth, but anytime you experience a bit of samadhi where the mind is turned inside, it's peaceful on its own with an object such as the breath, you start to understand it. So it gets you a little bit closer to nibbana because you're getting a little bit closer to the unconditioned mind.
Sadhu Lumpur. We have Nazreen in Melbourne. If we could unmute her, please.
Hello, Lumpur.
Hello.
As you know, I'm very new to Dhamma, but I get very emotional still. My comment I don't know whether that's the right thing or wrong. I think I've got very strong faith, but my practice might not be so good. So this is my third year doing the retreat. My answer to your question about how I find the retreat, every year is a bit different. This year, last night, I followed your advice to contemplate on the body parts. And compared to breathing, focusing on the breath, I struggle a lot with that. I find that 1 hour goes, I struggle with a lot of background thought, but with contemplation of the body parts, the hour went very quickly. And I don't know whether that should be the way I practice, or should I alternate and improve my breathing as well? Thank you, Luang Por.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to see you tried it. Some people are even reluctant to try any kind of body contemplation because it's not an immediately attractive meditation technique. Perhaps because it was new, you were kind of more interested and enthusiastic, which is good. And so it held your attention better. Maybe you've practiced the mindfulness of breathing quite a few times now, so you're more used to it. And that's one of the problems with meditation. You get used to your objects, so then it's much easier to just kind of drift along. You've heard the instructions before, you've done it before, so you're not looking at it or doing it with fresh eyes because you've done it before. So it's very easy to get caught into distraction and just think. And sometimes we even convince ourselves, I'm with the breath, but actually we're just thinking. We're sort of a little bit with the breath and mostly with the thinking. So maybe you turn to do the body contemplation, and it's new and it's more absorbing, and you're in the medical field, as it were. So you maybe have an affinity with that kind of meditation. So continue when you have time, do some and see what it's like. You don't have to choose between the breath or the body meditation. You can use them together, not exactly at the same time, but you can maybe do mindfulness of breathing for a period of time in a meditation session and then move to body contemplation. Or some people even do body contemplation first and then move to mindfulness of breathing. You have the chance to experiment and see what works with your character and through your experience, what seems to be working. And don't be too ambitious with the body contemplation. Most people find it very difficult to sustain it for long periods because, we kind of recoil back from the unattractiveness of the body the more we focus on it. So, teachers often say, well, just try doing 15 minutes of that. See if you can stay within the body, the field of the body, the images, the contemplations, the sensations for 15 minutes. That's a good starting point. So if you're doing a meditation, you might spend 15 minutes doing that, another period of time doing breath meditation, even another period of time doing loving kindness meditation. You do have room to experiment here and see what works for you. It's not completely rigid, and you're not a robot. Like you say, this year's retreat, the experiences are different than last year's. Of course, the world changes, our world changes. So some years the conditions for our practice are very conducive, no problems anywhere, no issues. So then you can really get into just very calming states of mind. Another year, you may have lots of family problems and this problem and COVID problem, and it's a very distracting, disturbing time, and you just have to work very hard just to sit still, maybe. But that's okay, because from year to year, you're building experience, and the different experiences we have, good and bad, pleasant, unpleasant, that's all right. They all become food for Dhamma, food for reflection. I'd say it'd be strange if every retreat was exactly the same. That'd be very strange, wouldn't it? Actually, things do change, and you're noticing that, and that's giving you some understanding. So keep practicing and just see what works for you.
Thank you, Luang Por. Thank you, Nazarene, for your question. Luang Por, we have a few comments in the chat box, and we have Lotus waiting, so I'll let Lotus go, and then I can read the comments in the chat box. I think we're halfway through. Lotus, please go ahead. Thank you.
กราบนมัสการค่ะหลวงพ่อขอบคุณมากค่ะหลวงพ่อกับการretreat. So I found it at the first time I thought I just very challenging of the retreat because I never done before. I mean in the retreat at home. However, I just feel like this is the best place ever. I don't need to hunting around to find a place for my retreat anymore. Thank you so much, Ajahn. I have a question. Every time I go into the deep insight, deep samadhi. Sorry, I just still feel a bit of pity. Every time I go into the deep insight, I have a feeling that, and I found the image that I experienced when I a little kid, probably around like, from my memory, probably around like 6 to 8 years old. At that time, I was so sick. I remember I got very high fever. My mom just gave me a lot of tepid sponge, which is just cool me down. And my mom feed me the meal. I set up and I point something. And I told my mom, that is so beautiful. My mom asked me, what the beautiful? I really don't know. Until I went to the retreat many years ago. I said meditation and then I go into the deep insight. And I look at the image. And it's just exactly the same feeling that I experienced, that I recall from my childhood. And after that, it didn't happen very often. I'm trying to looking for that image again, but it didn't happen. And sometimes unexpectedly happen, and it's come back to me the same feeling that I had in the past. At the time, I just feel like I'm so big. My body is getting so big, right into the roof. And the image with different colors come into my head. And a few days ago, probably 2 days ago, I feel exactly the same. Sorry, Ajahn. I feel the same. I just establish the mindfulness and look into it, what it is. And in looking at, I can see that my body is still here. My pain of my knee is still there. The other thing is still surrounding me. I keep looking that image. It is still there for a little while. I keep looking at it. And I'm wondering what it is. That's not the mind. It is maybe just a part of the feeling of the mind, which is not the difference between the thought, the pain. And then after that, it didn't last long. Just disappearing. My question is, why that feeling is come back into me exactly the same when on the childhood? Secondly, is that feeling is just a part of it, of the mind, or it just something happened, not the difference between the thought and the pain? ขอบพระคุณหลวงพ่อค่ะ
What you describe is quite common. Many people in childhood have some quite good experiences with parents, sometimes on their own, sometimes with another person, where the mind becomes very peaceful, joyful, with piti and sukha. And so that experience from the past becomes what we call like a nimitta of the past, of a peaceful mind, a good state of mind. And when the conditions are right, that same kind of experience can arise again. And you may have an image as well, same kinds of feeling, joy, blissful feeling, peaceful feeling. It can arise many times through your life. So it's like a signpost. Like when you're traveling, it's saying you're going in the right direction. It's a sign of good things. It's a sign of the peaceful mind. But like you say, it can become an attachment, something you're waiting for. You say, when will I have it again? I want it again. And that's a problem. That's your kilesa tanha, and that's kilesa and craving. So you have to accept it's still anicca, it's impermanent. But you can learn what conditions this peaceful feeling coming up. What am I doing? So if you're on a meditation retreat, well, it's quite clear you have faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, a teacher. You have your practice of meditation. Things are coming up, so you may experience that same image and feeling again. Sometimes it can just be your own mind. It's just in the right spot, even though you could be at work one day or busy doing something, and then you might just pause and this feeling can come up again. So sometimes it can come up in an unexpected place. Sometimes it's expected. It's in a retreat or something like that. But try not to hold on to it. Just accept it. This is a good sign. The mind is more peaceful. I'm remembering something from the past and the same feeling is coming up. That's good. But then let go. Don't hold on to it. Just let go and contemplate impermanence, anicca. Even the feeling is anicca. These experiences, they come and go. They're not really a person. They're just an experience of the mind that comes when the causes, the conditions are right. This will come up. When things change, things pass, this feeling will go away. So you can enjoy it when it's there. Fine, enjoy it, be happy, but don't hold on to it. You have to let it go.
Sadhu Luang Por, thank you. So before we jump on to the next raised hand, Luang Por, we've got some feedback on the question that you asked. I think this would be quick, so I'll just go through this. So we've got some feedback from people. So this is Punya P. Dear Ajahn, this is a very great retreat and very helpful. Thank you so much. Wish you good health and very peaceful New Year 2022. We have Champika. Dear Luang Por, thank you for being a great teacher to us. We are learning so much Dhamma from you, Anumodana. Also, thank you to the organizers for making this possible. Thank you. And one more. So, dear Ajahn, thank you very much for the retreat. I appreciate very much your guidance for us. Wish you good health and a peaceful new year. So we'll jump on to the next raised hand, which is Leon. Leon, if we could unmute him, please. Go ahead, Leon. You're live.
Namaskar, Luang Por. Thank you for your continuous guidance for the past few years, especially during this pandemic time. Brother Ivan in Melbourne is still waiting for us to visit and bring us to Warburton. And we have been following your teachings both on Sundays as well as Saturdays on Facebook. We find that the program is very helpful for us, especially during this pandemic time. In the sense that it doesn't matter which location we are. It is like we are a kind of an extension of BBM that we could every weekend attend either via Facebook or on Zoom to attend the Dhamma talk, as well as join the chanting, ask some questions. And we find that the retreat especially helpful for our practice. In one way, it kind of like during these few days, it kind of remind us to put in extra effort. Although the timing is a bit difficult for us, 3 a.m. in Singapore, but we try our best to join the program as much as possible, especially during these 4 days. Also due to some health conditions, I was not able to observe 8 precepts for the past year, but during these 4 days, I told myself that, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so I was able to again start 8 precepts again in some way. So that is a good beginning for me at the end of this year. And we find that the frequent retreats, not only this one, sometimes it could be shorter. For example, the Easter retreat or some other retreat could be maybe 2 days or 3 days. But at a kind of a certain interval, it is really helpful for us, not only this year end, but for example, by joining. So it kind of like provide us a kind of interval on a frequent basis that we could continue to boost up our effort. And then after that, we'll continue to practice on the daily, and then followed by the Sunday Dhamma talk. So once again, thank you for all your guidance, and we are looking forward to visit Ivan and visit you in Warburton, and also to look forward to so-called future retreats. It could be 2 days or 3 days, any days, and we'll try to find time to participate. Thank you.
Very, very nice to hear from you. And I don't know if you know, but Ivan is sitting right here. He's watching and listening as well. You can't see him. He's down there, but he's smiling at me now. So a warm welcome from Ivan as well as me. Maybe you have to book yourself into the novice program next December. Assuming COVID and everything is a bit easier and travel is easier and everything, maybe one day you can come and become a novice monk here. Or if it's not December, at another time you come and keep the 8 precepts and stay in the monastery for a while. So maybe you make that aspiration. You know, it's one of the wholesome aspirations is to take an ordination as a novice monk or a full monk. You may not be able to do it yet, but you hold it in your heart and you hold it there as something to do when you're ready, when conditions allow. But for now, you can make your mind like the mind of a monk, even though you're still dressed like a layperson and you may have to only keep 5 precepts, that's okay. But you can have the mind of a monk, which means you have to be focused on Buddha Dhamma Sangha every day. You have to be cultivating hiriyottapa, sense of shame, and an awareness of the consequences of your actions. You don't want to make bad karma, so you have that clear in your mind. And you do your best to practice mindfulness, keep the precepts every day. And then your mind is becoming more and more like a monk, even if your body is still the body of a layperson.
Sadhu Lumpur. Lumpur, we've got about 15 more minutes to go. So friends, if you could keep your questions concise, that would be greatly appreciated. We have Sikita, who is ready to ask a question.
Lumpur, how are you? I'm very happy to be able to attend this retreat. And I would like to express my gratitude, respect, and metta to Lumpur. Number one is I have been practicing for more than 10 years on and off physical retreats, but I don't see much progress. However, lately during the pandemic, I start to listen to Lumpur's Q&A on Tuesday, talk on Saturday, and the Q&A on Sundays. I start to be able to realize the Dhamma as what you have taught in reality. That is to be able to see causes and conditions, and to be able to, in a lot of things, I can see this sense of self always popping up. You know, the greed, the hatred, the delusion. Delusion is harder to detect, but if it's something that I'm blur, I consider that as a delusion. However, whenever there is anything that I do, I know that every physical process, there is an intention. There is a mental intention before the physical or verbal action comes about. So, which was very difficult for me to see these realities in the past, but with Long Pa's guidance and Dhamma talks, it rings in the ear, and I keep to what Long Pa has guided. So it is very, very beneficial, and I will continue to practice. However, there was an experience whereby where I can see very, very far. Suddenly, like the whole world has, I mean, there is nothing in this world that I have to be worried about. And the eyes can just see very, very far, and nothing is a problem for me. So I don't know what is that experience, but I feel very joyful and happy, and that sustained for only an hour or so and gone. So I can't get that experience again. And that was, I'm not sure what is that, but it was good for me because I don't have any suffering, any worries. I said, this is it. This world is going to be like that. Going forward, I think I still have a lot of, I don't have much time left. I'm already in my late 60s. 2 years ago, I tried to be a seminary, but I still think I have to put in more effort. 1 hour or so a day of meditation is not enough, I know. But I haven't put in much more effort than that. I will try. Thank you, Long Pa. And again, once again, my gratitude, respect, and metta to Long Pa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Very nice to see you. Maybe you're judging yourself too harshly. You said you've been practicing about 10 years and you feel you haven't got much results. Well, the very fact you're still here practicing, that is a result. Many people take it up for a while and then give up and stop. You haven't stopped, so that's a result. Also, you've had a few experiences in your meditation like others, like you have that experience where you have the mind seeming to go out and see through the world and see that the world, you know, it's all suffering. There's nothing to attach to there. When piti and sukha arise, these are the qualities of some of the factors of samadhi. Often they have this sense of breaking down barriers of the physical body, the room we're in, the world, and the mind, going to the mind on a, you know, going inwards to the mind, which is on a different level. So you even have had results in your practice. That's a very positive thing. So just keep going, like you say, just keep trying, keep going, don't give up, and good things will come. Even if you feel you're not progressing in your practice, if you can maintain what you have been maintaining, that's already progress. A lot of people, they go downhill in their life and they become more angry, more confused, more worried and anxious. You've even been tested in this last few years by COVID. So the pandemic has tested you for your faith, your effort in the practice. And so far, you've passed the test. You're still practicing. So keep it up. And I give you my anumodana and wish you well.
Sadhu Luang Por. Do you feel up to taking one more question, Luang Por?
Not a problem. It's the last day. We're quite happy to keep going.
Okay, so we have something in the chat box, Ajahn. So the question is asking, Dear Ajahn, could you please explain how to do Anapanasati meditation? Thank you. Answering your question about this retreat, we are fortunate to have this retreat at this difficult period and cultivate goodness in our hearts. and this retreat is very helpful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So the question is on Anapanasati meditation.
Well, it's nice to come back to familiar territory. Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. One thing you might consider is that you're breathing in every posture. So we do the formal Anapanasati. We sit, close our eyes, bring attention to the breath in, breath out, and try to keep paying attention to the breath. And that's correct. And when we have attention on the breath, we have that presence of mind. This is what we call mindfulness of breathing, or recollecting the breath, keeping the breath in mind. So that's literally what it is. But of course, it leads on to many good things. It leads on to the arising of mindfulness, states of samadhi, piti and sukha. It gives us the possibility to contemplate anicca. Just the breath going in and out is the expression of anicca, of impermanence. Your breath goes in, there's a pause, goes out. If there was no anicca, if it was nicca, if it was permanent, you could just breathe in once and that'd be the end of it. You wouldn't have to do all this breathing in, breathing out. So actually, something as simple as mindfulness of breathing is teaching you both how to calm your mind with mindfulness, serenity, but also it's teaching you the truth of life, that life really is impermanent and changing all the time. With every breath in, the body gets more oxygen, chemical reactions take place, the cells, the blood is full of oxygen, the body keeps going because of that. Every breath out takes out the toxins, it's carbon dioxide and whatever. You don't have to be a scientist, but you can just see this is expressing the impermanence of life. Life is constantly changing, and if something happens to our breath, we can die very quickly. So to turn to contemplating vipassana, anicca, dukkha, anatta is a very smooth thing, but one has to be mindful first. And that's why we practice mindfulness of breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Get really good at just staying with the breath, letting go of all the other thoughts, the sleepiness, the concerns about pain and all the things that fill our mind normally, work, family, letting it all go so we get used to just staying with the breath. As we do that more, then to turn to contemplate the impermanence of the body, the processes of the body, the arising away and passing away of feelings, memories, thoughts. That's possible. It's a vehicle for giving rise to insight, wisdom, understanding. And you can practice in every posture. So somebody was saying earlier, weren't they, that they were practicing mindfulness of breathing as they lay down at night. They weren't falling asleep, so they were doing that. And I think that's a very skillful thing to do, rather than fretting and worrying about why you're not falling asleep. And you'll tend to fall asleep naturally when you're tired. You can do Anapanasati when you're standing. You're just standing, waiting for something, or just pausing in the middle of your walking meditation. And as you stand, you're focusing on the breath. One time, Ajahn Mahabua came to our monastery in Thailand and was teaching how to do walking meditation. And then he said, sometimes your mind's energy just quite naturally gathers inwards as you're walking. And as it gathers in, you want to stop and stand still, because the movement of walking is just a little bit too much movement, physical movement. So you pause and you stop. The reason he said this is because he was walking up and down on a raised walking platform we built at a kuti. He was trying it out. He liked to do things like that. He'd say, this is where monks work. The workplace of a monk is the walking path. And this was a raised one. And he was telling us we should put handrails around it because it's raised off the ground. Because he said, if your mind becomes calm, you may stop your walking, you stand still, all your energy gathers inwards at the chest maybe. So you're practicing mindfulness of breathing at that moment. Close your eyes because your mind has gone inwards. You may stay in a state of samadhi for a while. Then when you open your eyes, you come out. It's just possible you just lose your balance a little bit because your mind is coming back to be aware of your body. So it's good to have a handrail. If you're high off the ground, sometimes our walking paths are like, you know, 1 meter or even 2 meters off the ground sometimes. You have to be careful. You could fall over, you know, just lose your balance. So you can stand and practice mindfulness of breathing, or say you're standing in a queue to see the doctor or get your COVID test, and you're feeling pressured by people around you and worry about whether you got COVID or not, and just do the mindfulness of breathing to calm yourself at that stressful moment. So you can do it standing, you can even do it walking, but you have to be quite calm to do that, because walking involves movement, and it's, you know, it's a whole different thing than being sitting still, say. But if you're used to watching the breath, you get used to the spot where you watch it. So it could be at the nose, or it could be at the chest, for example. And say what I've done, and I know what other monks do as well, you find a rhythm where your walking and your breathing work together. So your breathing tends to be at its own pace, so you tend to fit your walking to the breathing. And as you walk up and down, instead of focusing on the feet, you can also focus on the breath. Breathe in as you walk, breathe out as you walk, breathe in, breathe out. So you can experiment with that even. So really you can practice it in every posture. Or you're doing another activity, especially if it's a more repetitive activity. So you people, monks, we like to do crocheting. Sometimes we crochet the bowl covers for our alms bowls, and you sit there crocheting, watching the breath. Or you're carving, whittling wood or something, and you watch the breath. You're gently mopping or wiping, dusting, vacuuming, and you watch the breath as you do it. If it's a fairly easy task to do, you know, it doesn't require a lot of thinking or talking to anyone, well, you maybe can watch the breath as you do that task. So as you practice more, you can broaden your horizons with the breath meditation. You'll realize it really is something you can turn to at any time, any posture. So try it a bit, try it, experiment a bit.
Sadhu Lungpo. We're coming up to the end, but we still have one raised hand. Do we have time to address that question, Lungpo?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Okay, Nazreen has her hand raised. Could we please unmute her?
Lungpo, it's me again. Very quick question since we've got you. Thank you for giving us a bit more of your time. You mentioned very briefly about vastness of space being the object of meditation. Very briefly, but you also mentioned that it should be reserved for people with a bit more refined mindfulness. Before meeting with you a few years ago, I was, you know, my teacher with meditation was a non-Buddhist who taught us about vastness of space meditation. I was doing that for a few years. So that seems to be something that I'm comfortable to do. But I'm having a bit of doubt, given you said that it should, you know, we should do it cautiously because you have to have a more refined mind to do that. Can you say a little bit about that? Thanks, Lungpo.
Yeah, well, traditionally, say, according to the texts, the Buddhist texts, and to teachers, living teachers as well, we talk about the states of jhana. There's 8 jhanas. There's the 4, what we call jhanas of form, the rupa jhana, and then there's the 4 formless jhanas. So the 4 rupa jhanas, based on form, the body, Anapanasati, for example, you could develop all 4 jhanas, and each jhana is a gradual refinement and relinquishment of the coarser factors of the previous jhana. So the 4th jhana is considered the firmest, purest. The mindfulness is the most pure, stable, and it's the most pure kind of equanimity or detachment. That's already a very amazing thing that few people experience. People do experience it, very, very few. Based on that 4th Rupa jhana, one then withdraws from the body completely into the formless jhanas. That's why they're called formless. And they're based on ever refined awareness on the infinity of consciousness, infinity of space, or infinity of space first, infinity of consciousness, nothingness, focusing on nothingness. And then the final one is neither perception nor non-perception. So you know, but you don't know. You know, what is it that the mind is grasping onto? It's almost nothing at all. It's beyond nothing. You know, the perception that knows nothing, it's the very perception. Is it there? Is it not? Neither perception nor non-perception. So it's an ever withdrawing from the coarser states of mind to the more refined. But, you know, we can describe it like this, read it in the books, talk about it. But as an experience, it's a very, very refined state of samadhi. So most teachers don't talk about it much because most people are not there yet. They're not ready for that. I mean, it's fine for discussion and it's good to be aware of these things, but that doesn't mean to say you can't focus on the perception of infinite space or infinite consciousness, but don't confuse it with attaining that state of what we call jhana, very deep, stable samadhi. It may be a perception you use to help you let go of things and change your way of relating to the world a little bit, because you're aware, oh, actually, you know, space is unlimited, consciousness can be unlimited. It's giving you some new insights and perceptions into the way you perceive the world, the way the world is. And that's fine, but just be careful not to take it as or to mistake, you know, what you're perceiving or just developing that kind of perception as a refined state of samadhi, because most likely it isn't. But that doesn't mean to say you can't use it, of course.
Thank you, Luang Por. Brothers and sisters, let's take a moment to express our gratitude. Andamayam Dhammagataya Sadhu Karama Dhammase Sadhu 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 Anumodami